You're looking live at Launch Pad 39A, where in just a few minutes, SpaceX will begin fueling its Falcon 9 rocket right there. At the top is a lunar lander built by Intuitive Machines with NASA payloads on board. Hello, and welcome everyone to the Kennedy Space Center in Florida. I'm NASA's Megan Cruz. Liftoff of a Nova-C moon lander is scheduled for 1:05 a.m. Eastern Time after the team waved off a launch attempt yesterday. We'll talk more about that in just a few minutes, but for today, we are go for launch. And if everything goes according to plan, that lander will complete its journey 8 days from now with a landing at Malapert A, a 24-kilometer wide crater on the shadowy south side of the moon. Intuitive Machines, an American-based company in Houston, Texas, built and developed the lunar lander that will carry, among other things, 6 NASA payloads to the moon. We'll tell you all about those instruments and much more throughout this broadcast. But first, let's learn a little more about the moon-bound spacecraft. It's an autonomous Nova-C class lunar lander named Odysseus. Including the solar panels, it is 4.3 meters tall. Including the landing gear, it is 4.6 meters wide. The lander weighs approximately 675 kilograms and is capable of delivering about 130 kilograms of payload to the surface of the moon. Most of that spacecraft weight is fuel. Odysseus uses a liquid methane and liquid oxygen main engine that can throttle down to perform its final descent to the lunar surface in one continuous burn.
Falcon 9 is in startup.
Great call out. That means that the internal flight computers have now taken over the launch countdown. We are now just waiting the final go from the launch director.
LD, go for launch.
An excellent call. All systems are go for launch of Falcon 9 with the Intuitive Machines lunar payload.
30 seconds. Seconds. T-minus 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, ignition, and liftoff. Go SpaceX, go IM-1 and the Odysseus lunar lander.
Vehicle pitching downrange. Stage 1 propulsion is nominal.
Falcon 9 has successfully lifted off from Pad 39A at Kennedy Space Center, carrying the IM-1 payload. Now, during ascent, we tilt the engines, the technical term being gimbaling, and that turns the rocket horizontally. And
Mach 1. Max Q. Back shell has started.
Yep. We have a few events coming up in quick succession here. That will be MECO, stage separation, SES-1, and then the boost back burn startup on the first stage vehicle. MECO, or main engine cutoff, is where we shut down all 9 of those M1D engines on the first stage vehicle. That helps slow the vehicle down in preparation for stage separation, which is where the first and second stage will separate. And the first stage booster will begin its trip back to Earth. And the second stage vehicle will ignite that MVAC engine with SES-1, or second stage engine startup 1. And then the boost back burn will begin on the first stage vehicle, which is one of 3 burns that's required for the vehicle to make its way back to today's landing zone. And this burn assists with the vehicle to reorient itself back towards land.
Stage separation confirmed.
Stand back ignition.
Stage 1, boost back startup.
And there we saw and heard those call-outs for MECO, stage separation, SES-1, and the boost back burn startup on the first stage. Some great views there. Now the first stage is currently performing its boost back burn. This is where we ignite a few of the engines to bring the trajectory towards the landing site. And coming up here shortly will be fairing separation.
Fairing separation confirmed.
And an excellent view of fairing separation and an amazing view of the IM-1 payload attached to Falcon 9's second stage. Fairing deployment has been confirmed, and we will be attempting to retrieve these fairing halves once they fall back to Earth with our recovery vessel, Bob.
Both vehicles are on nominal trajectories.
And some good call-outs there. And in about 3 minutes, there will be a couple more burns on our first stage to prepare for landing at landing zone 1 at Cape Canaveral. Again, we've completed the boost back burn on the first stage. That's the first burn of 3. The next burns coming up will be the entry burn and then the landing burn for the first stage vehicle. Now we are at T plus 4 minutes and 17 seconds into today's mission. IM-1 is SpaceX's 14th launch this year, and the lunar lander on board could be the first U.S. moon landing since the Apollo program ended more than 50 years ago. You can see on your screen that the MVAC engine on the second stage is ignited, and we are currently in the first of 2 planned MVAC burns. Around T plus 6 minutes, you should see on your screen the first stage's entry burn coming up on that first stage vehicle. Again, that is the second of 3 burns. For the entry burn, we will relight 3 of those M1D engines, starting with the center E9 engine, followed shortly afterwards with the E1 and E5 engines. This helps slow the vehicle down as it enters back into the Earth's atmosphere. Now we need to slow down the vehicle to reduce re-entry forces, and that helps us to recover and reuse the first stage. And again, what you're seeing on your screen is a view of the MVAC engine on the second stage. And you can follow the speed and altitude of both vehicles on the bottom left hand of your screen. That is showing the stage 1 telemetry and stage 2 telemetry on your right hand screen. And we are coming up on the entry burn for the first stage vehicle in just about 20 seconds or so. And what you're seeing on your screen on the left-hand side, it's a little dark there, but that is a view from the first stage. And with the entry burn, we should see that screen light up with the engines reignited.
Stage 1, entry burn startup.
And there you can see that the entry burn has begun with those engines relit.
Stage 1, entry burn shutdown.
Stage 1, FTS.
And a very quick
Both
entry
vehicles are on
burn
nominal
there.
trajectories.
Great call-outs, both vehicles on nominal trajectories. And as I mentioned, that was the second of 3 burns required for this booster to return back down to land. The next and final burn will be the landing burn. That's just a center E9 engine burn, and that helps slow the vehicle down just in time for landing. That's coming up in just about 15 seconds or so.
Stage 1, transonic. Stage 1, landing burn.
And there you
Stage
can
2
see on
from
your
terminal
left-hand
guidance.
screen the landing
Stage
burn
2
has
FTS
begun. Let's
is
watch
safe.
as Falcon 9. Let's
Stage
watch
1
as Falcon 9
1.
touches down for landing.
Stage
And a
1
great
landing confirmed.
view there. That is we just had confirmation of
Nominal
booster
orbit
landing. We
insertion.
also heard and just heard SECO 1 as well as a confirmation of good orbit for our Falcon 9 second stage carrying our IM-1 payload. Now with that landing, that marks SpaceX's 273rd recovery of an orbital class rocket, including first stage landings for Falcon 9 and Falcon Heavy. And with confirmation of good orbit, the mission isn't over yet. Coming up, we do have the second burn of our MVAC engine, or SES-2, on board the second stage around the T plus 41 minute mark, followed by spacecraft separation. Now, right now, what you're seeing on your screen is an excellent view from the second stage, looking at our MVAC engine with the amazing view of Earth in the background there. The IM-1 lunar lander is still currently attached to Falcon 9's second stage at this moment. And again, SES-2 and SECO-2 are coming up here in just about 15 seconds or so. And hoping to be able to continue these live views here so that we can see SES-1 and SECO-2. And there you can see we have just had SES-1. You can see that MVAC engine has now relit. Again, this is just about a 53-second burn, so just under a minute. And shutdown of this MVAC engine coming up here in just about 10 seconds or so. And there you can see
Nominal
on your
orbit
screen that
insertion.
the MVAC engine has shut down, and we did hear that call out for a confirmation of good orbit. So with confirmation of a good orbit, it looks like we are on track for spacecraft separation in just a few minutes from now, just about a little over 5 minutes. Now, it's been a great launch so far. SpaceX did begin fueling of the IM-1 lander on the pad about 2 hours and 20 minutes before liftoff. And we did talk about that a little bit earlier in the webcast. It's a totally new procedure and new hardware for SpaceX that enabled fueling of the IM-1 lander on the pad with cryogenic methane and oxygen. And there's that live view there. Again, this is a view from the second stage vehicle looking aft at our MVAC engine there. And we are patiently waiting spacecraft separation here in just under a minute from now. And now that we have this live, perfect timing, we've got this great live view of the IM-1 lander right before it begins its 8-day journey to the moon. This is such an incredible view and very exciting that we have spacecraft separation coming up here in just a few seconds.
IM-1 Odysseus lunar lander separation confirmed.
What an incredible sight to see. The IM-1 Nova C lunar lander drifting away from Falcon 9's second stage, confirming spacecraft separation. From all of us here at SpaceX, we are wishing the IM-1 lander a great flight and safe travels. SpaceX is honored to be a part of NASA's Commercial Lunar Payload Services initiative to deliver science and technology to the lunar surface, and we thank NASA and Intuitive Machines for entrusting us with today's historic mission to the moon. For those of you following along, you'll know that this mission marks our 14th of the year and second just today. Congrats to the SpaceX team. We're just in February, and we've already launched in partnership with NASA missions like Axiom 3, Cygnus, and PACE. And we're gearing up for the Crew 8 mission before the end of the month. Check out spacex.com/launches for up-to-date missions and schedules. And before we sign off, let's go back to Josh at Intuitive Machines. Josh?
What an incredible, incredible view. Just a few moments ago, our flight controllers inside of Nova Control heard that confirmation of launch vehicle separation. This starts the countdown toward our lunar lander's autonomous commissioning. During this milestone, the lander is going through the steps required to power on, determine its position relative to the sun, and make communications contact with flight controllers in Nova Control. It's an autonomous process that takes several minutes. In that time, we'll walk you through what's happening in space approximately 223 kilometers or 139 miles from Earth. At launch vehicle separation, a spring force gently pushes Nova C away from the launch vehicle's second stage. We just saw that, allowing the lander to deploy and drift away toward the moon. Brake wires connected to the launch vehicle let the lander know it has deployed, and Nova C starts an internal timer to count down to when it's safe to turn on. After the timer finishes, Nova C's primary systems are expected to autonomously power on. This includes guidance, navigation, and control, or GNC for short, automated flight management software, radios, sensors, and thermal control. The GNC system powers on the cold gas helium reaction control system to stabilize the vehicle's attitude, because at this point, the lander does not know where it's pointed, but it can stop any residual spin motion. This is much like a person spinning in a chair with closed eyes can stop spinning without knowing which way they're pointing when they stop. After controlling the spin rate, special cameras known as star trackers autonomously match images of the distant star field and provide Nova C with its orientation. Software then takes those star tracker measurements and processes them through an algorithm known as the Kalman filter to correct the onboard orientation. The lander now has two critical data points: its attitude relative to the star field and a reference position from the estimated launch vector. With these data points, Nova C may command its reaction control system to maneuver the lander's top deck solar array toward the sun for illumination, generating maximum power. All of these steps are expected to be happening right now, and when autonomous commissioning is complete, our Nova C lander named Odysseus turns on its communication radios and makes first communications contact known as acquisition of signal, or AOS. Making that communications connection involves more than the lander's operations in space. It takes careful coordination here on Earth too, using Intuitive Machines' Lunar Data Network. The network was designed to support NASA's CLPS initiative, government services, and other commercial efforts using line-of-sight and data relay services for spacecraft in cislunar space, which also includes low Earth orbit. The secure network is made up of Nova Control, which we're keeping our eyes on right now, and strategically placed ground stations spread across the globe. The ground stations are expected to provide near continuous communications with Nova C during the entire IM-1 mission. With that entire network available, our flight controllers responsible for communications and ground stations will be the first people in Nova Control to start seeing data from our lunar lander, which means the ground station assigned to this part of the mission has locked onto Odysseus's signal. Now, from the lander to Nova Control, all of these innovations and capabilities are being put to the test right now as we prepare to enter our nominal acquisition of signal window with Nova C. Right now, we are listening into the mission audio loop and looking live into Nova Control.
SpaceX just deliver us the OPM file.
Okay, copy. You're good to process in the background while we work contact.
Okay, I'll work with Fido on this.
Right now, we estimate that the lunar lander is traveling about 10 kilometers per second, which is about 24,600
All right, I want to make sure
miles
Com's
per
happy
hour.
with it. Com?
Standing by. I don't see packets updating in packet counts unless I'm looking in the wrong spot. And I'm not seeing anything populate in AOS.
So we're still standing by for autonomous commissioning and making that first ground communications from the lunar lander in space. We expect the carrier lock call to come from the comm or ground network stations inside of Nova Control. And this is Houston's first commanded lunar mission since Apollo 17.
All right, I see packets. And I see...
All right, guys.
And there we have it. We have packets. That is Michaela Landivar
All right, guys.
on the ground.
Com, I want your report. Uplink and downlink, what do we got?
Okay, so I am seeing packets populate on the AOS screen and in the packet counts area. Looks like telemetry is coming in pretty well. We have not started uplink, so we do not have uplink locks at this point. But it looks like we are seeing most everything that we would expect as far as
That's an
downlink is
excellent
concerned.
call. We have
Okay.
reached a
There is
pivotal
one thing
milestone.
that I need to
We're going to
look
bring it
into
back
potentially.
into the broadcast booth and congratulate the team working inside of Nova Control as our Nova C lunar lander has successfully separated from the second stage of the launch vehicle, autonomously commissioned, and made first communications contact with Nova Control. What an achievement for the entire Intuitive Machines team. Let's honor this momentous milestone and prepare for the challenges and triumphs that await us on our lunar journey. From Intuitive Machines' Nova Control in Houston, Texas, thank you for joining our portion of the IM-1 mission broadcast. We'll toss it back over to Megan in Florida for reaction to this successful launch of our IM mission. Megan.